Good day, everyone. Today, we delve into the profound question of what everlasting life is and is not through Plato's philosophy. Our exploration will focus on how Plato approached the notion of the soul's immortality and how this belief intersects with his metaphysical and ethical views, most notably in Phaedo, Republic, and Timaeus. These foundational texts are central to understanding not only the nature of the soul, but also the philosophical implications of everlasting life, as Plato understood it. In Phaedo, we encounter Plato's famous arguments for the soul's immortality, framed in Socrates' final hours before his death. Meanwhile, the Republic introduces the myth of air, which offers a striking allegory on the moral choices that shape the soul's journey beyond death. Finally, in Timaeus, Plato situates the soul within the cosmic order, providing a grand vision of immortality that ties the individual to the universe. To fully grasp the depth of Plato's vision, it is vital that you engage directly with these dialogues. I strongly recommend you read or revisit these texts before proceeding further. Immersion in the Phaedo, Republic, and Timaeus will illuminate Plato's nuanced view of the soul and its immortal nature, especially as we discuss how everlasting life is not simply a continuation of existence, but a reflection of the soul's alignment with eternal truths and forms. As with all philosophical inquiry, reading the primary text allows you to uncover insights beyond what we can cover here. It may be a time commitment for those willing to undertake this intellectual journey, but the reward is invaluable. These works, particularly in tandem with Plato Reimagined, will deepen your understanding and enable you to engage with the material more profoundly. I invite you to open your minds as we explore this timeless question. Remember, the true power of philosophy lies not in the answers, but in the process of inquiry itself. Let's begin.
Lecture 03. What everlasting life is and is not. Good day, everyone. Today, we will explore a concept that has fascinated philosophers and thinkers for millennia: everlasting life. Specifically, we will examine how Plato addresses the notion of the soul's immortality and the philosophical implications of this belief in his dialogues. The idea of an eternal soul and its connection to the forms, knowledge, and virtuous life are all pivotal to Plato's worldview. By analyzing key passages in Phaedo, Republic, and Timaeus, we will attempt to untangle what Plato meant by the immortality of the soul, and more importantly, what everlasting life is and is not, according to his philosophy. The concept of the soul in Plato's dialogues. Before delving into the concept of immortality, it is essential to understand how Plato views the soul. For Plato, the soul is not a mere component of a living being, but the essence of a person, what truly defines them. In Phaedo, Plato provides a comprehensive understanding of the soul's nature, whereas Socrates speaks on the soul's relationship to the body and the eternal realm of the forms. The soul, in its purest form, exists apart from the body, and it is only through philosophical reflection that we come to understand this separation. Phaedo 65e, 67b. The soul's primary task is to guide the body, and ideally, to free itself from bodily desires. This idea is presented in the allegory of the charioteer and the two horses in Phaedrus. The soul is metaphorically depicted as a charioteer striving to control the horses, one representing human nature's noble, rational aspects, and the other symbolizing the base, irrational impulses. The struggle for control reflects the internal battle between reason and desire. Phaedrus 246a, 254e. For Plato, reason, represented by the immortal soul, is our connection to the divine and eternal forms. Immortality of the soul in Phaedo. The concept of the soul's immortality is most directly addressed in Phaedo, particularly in the dialogue surrounding Socrates' final hours before drinking the hemlock. Socrates lays out 4 arguments for the immortality of the soul: the argument from opposites, the theory of recollection, the affinity argument, and the final argument based on the form of life, Phaedo 70c 72e. These are essential for understanding why Plato saw the soul as imperishable and eternal. Let's begin with the argument from opposites. Socrates asserts that life and death are opposites, and that one comes from the other in a continuous cycle. Phaedo 70d 71d. Just as sleep follows waking and waking follows sleep, so too does life follow death. This cyclical view implies that the soul must persist beyond bodily death to participate in the rebirth process. The second argument is the theory of recollection, which posits that learning is essentially remembering truths the soul knew before birth, Phaedo 72e 77a. This presupposes that the soul existed before birth, which implies that it continues to exist after death. Plato's reliance on the theory of recollection is central to his theory of knowledge, suggesting that the soul's immortality is linked to its role in apprehending the eternal forms, unchanging and outside of time. The third argument, the affinity argument, draws a distinction between the mortal and immortal realms. The soul, according to Socrates, resembles the divine, invisible, and indissoluble forms, while the body is akin to the material, mortal world, Phaedo 78b ADE. The soul's nature aligns with the divine realm, and thus it cannot be destroyed like the body. This reasoning moves the discussion from mere belief to an ontological framework, where the soul's characteristics are tied directly to the nature of reality itself. Finally, the fourth and perhaps most philosophical argument centers around the idea of the soul's participation in the form of life. The soul, by its very nature, brings life wherever it resides. Therefore, it is impossible for the soul to die or cease to exist, as it is inherently tied to life itself. Phaedo 105c 106e. This final argument is the culmination of the previous discussions, situating the soul within the eternal forms and reinforcing the notion of its immortality. The nature of everlasting life, the Republic, and the myth of error. While Phaedo provides a solid philosophical foundation for the immortality of the soul, Plato's Republic offers a more imaginative view of what life after death might look like. At the end of the Republic, Plato recounts the myth of error, a soldier who dies and returns to life to describe his journey through the afterlife. The myth portrays a cosmic system of judgment where souls are rewarded or punished based on the lives they lived. Republic 614b 621d. After a period of reward or punishment, they are reincarnated based on the choices they make in the afterlife. This myth introduces two significant ideas about everlasting life. First, the concept of moral responsibility is emphasized. The soul's fate in the afterlife depends on the moral quality of the life it led, suggesting that everlasting life is not merely about existing indefinitely, but about the quality of existence. Second, the idea of choice plays a pivotal role. Souls in the afterlife choose their next life, emphasizing Plato's belief in free will and the soul's capacity to shape its own destiny. Plato's inclusion of this myth is not to be taken literally, but as an allegory for the moral consequences of our choices in this life and the next. Plato's depiction of everlasting life in Republic suggests that it is not about eternal bliss or punishment, but rather a cycle of moral growth and learning. The soul, through its participation in the forms, is given the opportunity to refine itself through each incarnation. The importance of this myth lies in its philosophical implications. Everlasting life is not an end in itself, but a process of continual moral and intellectual refinement. This is why Plato sees philosophy as a preparation for death, Republic 518, because it is through philosophical reflection that the soul attunes itself to the forms and ultimately to the good. The Timaeus and the Cosmos, a different view of immortality. In Timaeus, Plato offers a different perspective on the soul's immortality, one that is tied more closely to cosmology than ethics. In this dialogue, the soul is not just the essence of an individual, but also a part of the cosmic order. Timaeus, who narrates the dialogue, explains that the soul of the universe was created before the material world and that it governs all things within the cosmos. Timaeus 34c 37. This cosmic soul is immortal and divine, and individual souls are fragments of this larger whole. The individual soul, according to Timaeus, is a reflection of the cosmic soul, which is eternal and unchanging. This introduces a new dimension to the idea of everlasting life. The soul is not merely an individual entity, but part of a greater, universal order. The immortality of the soul, then, is linked to its participation in the cosmos's eternal nature. This idea of participation resonates with Plato's broader metaphysical views, where all things participate in the eternal forms. For Plato, this cosmic perspective of the soul offers an even grander view of immortality. The individual soul's life after death is not just a personal continuation, but a reaffirmation of its place within the eternal structure of the universe. In this sense, everlasting life is a return to the harmony of the cosmos, where the soul reclaims its rightful place in the divine order. What everlasting life is and is not so? What does Plato ultimately mean by everlasting life? It is clear that Plato's view is not a simplistic notion of eternal conscious existence or a paradise of endless happiness. Instead, everlasting life for Plato is tied to the soul's relationship with the forms, particularly the form of the good. The soul, by its very nature, seeks to align itself with the eternal truths of the forms, and this alignment constitutes its immortality. Everlasting life is not, in Plato's philosophy, about the prolongation of existence for its own sake. It is not simply surviving death or living forever in a literal sense. Rather, it is about the soul's ongoing pursuit of wisdom and virtue, its participation in the eternal forms, and its continual refinement. This is why Plato speaks of philosophy as a preparation for death. The philosopher's life is one that seeks to free the soul from the distractions of the body and the material world, allowing it to focus on the eternal. Phaedo 82d84b. Moreover, Plato's concept of immortality is not individualistic. As seen in the Timaeus, the soul's immortality is part of a larger cosmic order. Everlasting life is not about personal gratification or fulfillment, but about fulfilling one's role within the greater structure of reality. The soul's immortality is linked to its participation in this cosmic order, just as the individual soul is a part of the universal soul. In contrast to modern conceptions of immortality, which often focus on the prolongation of individual consciousness, Plato's view emphasizes the soul's relationship with eternal truths. Everlasting life, in this sense, is not about escaping death, but about transcending it through participation in the divine order of the forms. Conclusion. In conclusion, Plato's view of everlasting life is deeply tied to his metaphysical and ethical beliefs. The soul's immortality is not just a continuation of existence, but an ongoing process of alignment with the eternal forms. Through this process, the soul refines itself and moves closer to wisdom and virtue, returning to its true home in the realm of the eternal.